Yeah, great question. I was speaking in Boston a little bit over a year ago, right before everything kind of came to an end as far as travel goes. And I told the crowd, look, insurance is available, but sometimes not enough insurance is available. And what I mean by that is limits. This industry, this space is starving for limits, and that's property and casualty. We've got policyholders that have multiple millions in sales, and they're carrying, maybe 5 or 10 million in product liability. If you took any type of company out beyond the cannabis world, that any buyer out there that's making widgets or what have you, if they've got 100 million in sales, they are not carrying 10 million in product liability limits. So limits, aside from coverage, what it says on the paper, limits is the real that's a real problem these days as far as the state of affairs right now. Otherwise, you've got some coverage issues. You've got a lot of claims made. You have a number of exclusions that kind of litter all the policies: property liability, product liability, what have you. Didn't mean that in a pejorative sense by saying littering, but it is loaded up pretty much with exclusionary language. I think the reason for this is you've got some very intrepid reinsurers that are backing equally intrepid carriers. If you're in this space for any amount of time, if Travelers, for instance, finds out that they're on an LRO that is housing a cannabis concern, that risk comes running to us ASAP, because there are carriers that just don't want to participate. There is a reluctance because of the federal illegality, the scheduling that is going on, and they don't see it as perhaps worth it or what have you. I really don't know their motivations exactly, but I think it's easy to guess. So I would say that limits are number one, and I would say that certain coverage issues, as this segment proves itself, like I know it will, then coverage issues will become a little bit less as time goes on. And we just hope that limits can keep up with the spend that a lot of these operators are doing right now. That is, it's that two-sided coin. It's the limits and the coverage.
We surveyed our members, and one of the top responses that we got pertaining to insurance was around capacity. Exactly what Kieran is saying, and I'm sure James would say the same. It was just around capacity. And when I say capacity, I'm echoing what Kieran is saying, but also just choices. The way that we've entered into the industry, or way that businesses are entering into a burgeoning business like this or industry like this, it's a requirement. And so, but in a sense, the first ones to the table have the least amount of choices. And so I think as the industry opens up, we'll have more capacity. And that's the goal that we have, is to make sure that we're, enforcing that and pushing that. Again, that's, the business needs to be able to sustain. The industry has to be sustainable. And capacity is definitely one of the top of mind issues for business owners.
Yeah. So I would 100% agree. The days of, a 2 million GL and $10 million on property limit, like those days are long in the cannabis industry, right? You have companies that have, $50 to $70 million in one facility, right? You over $250, $300 million in their property schedule. So I would agree 100%. Limits both on the property casualty side as well as the professional liability side, right? Whether you're able to build a tower and have a company come over top and provide excess limits on the professional liability. Some of these companies are still not getting to the limits they need to, just from a coverage standpoint. So I would agree 100%. I hope that with some of the things that some of the regulations that are coming about, whether it's safe banking or, I know Senator Menendez, our New Jersey senator here, put a legislation forward that would specifically help cannabis companies with insurance. As we see some of these things progress, we hope, and I think, everybody here echoes that we can help provide higher limits and less exclusionary terms to be able to fully plug the gaps of what these cannabis companies are dealing with.
If I could just add one more thing, one item that if our audience has any insurance buyers in it today, there's one thing that everybody can do that is outside of the constraints of capacity and certain coverage issues, and that is insurance to value. Insurance to value is probably the most important aspect when you've got property, making sure that you are buying the appropriate limit. I say to my colleagues all the time, nobody wins when insurance to value is not met. And that is one thing that I would stress above and beyond all of these other issues. Insurance to value, that's the low-hanging fruit in this whole thing.
Exactly. I totally agree with that as well. And I think that the rush into business oftentimes causes owners to overlook that. That we've got to check the box, we've got to move forward, this is what we have to have. And then you get into it and I think we realize it in practical settings, in our own personal settings, that insurance does not make us whole. So if you go into it in that mindset that, oh, I've got insurance and if anything happens, we'll be covered. But we know from, a business interruption standpoint, look at this past year with COVID. Nobody planned for that. They planned to a degree, but you couldn't plan for it fully. So even if you had insurance, it didn't make you whole with those interruptions, but it does offset some. But I think that's one thing. I agree with you, Kieran, that business owners listening to this need to go back and really look at that and research it and see if they have enough, should there be an interruption in their business, and do they have what they need to sustain and to continue forward?
I agree 100%. And kind of back to the first question that we jumped into, what is risk management? What practices, what actions are you taking to actually lessen the chance of a claim happening in the first place? Right? So insurance is the just in case, but what are you doing proactively? What standard operating procedures, what is in place to make sure that just the overall chance of a loss happening is far less. And again, agreeing with Tamala, the mind state of insurance is going to put you back 100% in the spot that you were before. I don't think is the correct mind state when you're dealing specifically with these losses that could overtake what your policy limits are. Just making sure you're fully buttoned up in the full approach to risk management, not just from an insurance standpoint.
Yeah.